What's good, everyone? Matt here from UK Nets Fans, and we're back. I'm joined as ever by Aidan McConaughey and Cammy Anderson for another episode of BKT UK, the British Brooklyn Nets podcast. On this episode, the last episode of the regular season, we'll be recapping last week's games against Denver, Chicago, San Antonio, Chicago again, Cleveland, casting our eyes back over the season to see how far we've come, talk about some individual accolades as well, and look ahead to the playoffs. We're also going to be answering your listener questions and much, much more. Before we get started, make sure you're following us on Twitter and Instagram at UK Nets Fans, the pod itself on Twitter at BKT UK Pod, and check us out on YouTube where you can watch all of our episodes back. We're also now live streaming on Twitch. So if you go and search UK Nets Fans on Twitch, you can join us there too. With that out of the way, let's get into it. Lads, it's been a long season. It's been an emotional season, but the Nets finish off the season in the 2 spot. We're going to play either the winner of the Celtics or Washington play-in game. I want to come to you guys and just get your broad strokes of what you guys have made of the season so far. Second, do we think that's fair for the performances we've put in this season?
Yes and no. I think when you consider the preseason expectations were we've got to get the championship, and then Harden came in and that kind of ramped things up again. Yeah, I think to finish second, you kind of think, that's a bit of a sore one. You really should be finishing first. But then you look at all the injuries we've had, the kind of COVID situations. There's just been so much that we've had to contend with. And I know that sounds, I don't know what the phrase would be for it, but just maybe moaning for the sake of moaning. We've still had a really good season. There has been a few slip-ups along the way, a few kind of moments we'd like to forget and probably won't mention again after this season's over. But yeah, I think second, given the kind of cards we were dealt with throughout the season and how complicated things have been at times, certainly happy to have got second. Far rather having second than third. Obviously, that gives us the benefit of home court advantage. And I mean, we knew if we finished second or third, it would make the playoff route that bit harder. But the fact that we do have that home court advantage, whether that makes anything easier, obviously now fans are getting back in. Obviously, time will tell. But overall, I think we can be fairly chuffed with how the season's went so far. Now this is kind of when the real basketball starts and really what we were all looking forward to.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, Cammy. I think it's fair in terms of the roadblocks that we've had along the way. I mean, you just need to look around the league, look at the Lakers, look at the Warriors, and look how they've dealt with their injuries they've had this year. I mean, the Lakers have had some really tough ones with Anthony Davis and LeBron being out at the same time. I don't think people were expecting much from that. But if you look at our situation with injuries as well, it's been pretty poor at times. And yeah, we've got to be happy to be in second place, considering where some of the other teams are around the league. I am still a little bit gutted that we didn't finish first. I think that's fair enough, just down to the fact that there were plenty of opportunities for us to take that first seed and run away with it at times. There were some really, really silly losses along the way. I mean, some that we can just write off as just pure bad luck, but there were some where there were some quite strange decisions that I'm sure the Nets do regret. But at the end of the day, we've always prioritised health, and that's been the number one message from the Nets this year. And it has paid off massively, because we're going into the playoffs at the weekend with our stars healthy. I mean, I know Joe Harris has had a niggling injury recently, but it sounds like he's going to be coming back in, and we're going to have all our big players healthy going into the playoffs. So the Nets have got what they wanted. And yeah, I mean, definitely the second seed gives us a much tougher route to the finals. We knew that. We've known it for a long time. But at the end of the day, you've got to look at the matchups in the East at the moment. You look at the Hawks versus the Knicks. You look at that Bucks matchup against the Heat. There's no easy games. There really is no easy games. And there's plenty of room for teams to slip up as well early doors. And I think if you look at the Nets and their potential matchups with the two teams in the play-in, I fancy us out of anyone in the East to sweep that first round more than anyone else still. So that shows my confidence levels going into that first round. And yeah, really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, nice one. First off, thanks for the people coming in on the chat already. Do get involved. Do say hello. We love seeing you guys coming through. Yeah, I think second's fair, man. I would have, like you guys, I would have absolutely loved it if we'd come first. But with all these, like you say, with the niggling injuries and in, out, shake it all about, COVID protocols that we've had to endure, I think second is absolutely fine. That even sort of when you're quite good, you're afforded the luxury of wanting even more from your players, I think. So having it where we've done incredibly well this season, a historic season that we're going to get into later on in the pod, but where we've still got those little questions and the little things that we'd like to see different, I think that's like a really nice place to be in as Nets fans. So in what am I trying to say? In terms of it being like the first proper season with obviously the big three, but like coming into the season, we didn't even know we'd have James Harden. So the first season of KD being back, still having room to improve, I think is a really nice place to be in. Not that I wouldn't have enjoyed us going off on first and, going 62-0, but I don't think that's probably a bit unrealistic. But I think, seconds probably feels about right. We've had our wobbles, but generally we've been pretty good. So it feels really, really nice to say that the Nets have come in second. Annoyingly, though, I don't know if like you guys are the same, but with Philly being the people that are first, and we don't get that like division banner, I would have loved one of them as well, because it's something that Nets fans don't really get. We don't get to raise banners that often or at all. So having one of those would have been one of those lowly things that we probably would have been taking the mick out of for celebrating, but still would have been nice, I think. But just one of those things with the Sixers being so good. It's just one of those things. But as I say, it was a historic season. The Yes Network put up a graphic in the Cleveland game saying just how good a season we've had. And in terms of Nets records, we finished with the best win percentage of 0.667%. We scored the most points with 118.6. We had the best 3-point percentage, 39.2, and we finished with the most assists of an average season, which is 26.8. Not bad for a team that had to be told time and time again there's only one ball. What did you guys make of the stats that we finished the season on?
Yeah, I mean, you just need to look at them and go, wow. I mean, there's some cracking numbers there. I think it hasn't been talked about much through the season just because our standards have been so high. But it's easy to look back and see how far we've come with those incredible stats. And I mean, with the way the NBA is progressing, obviously with a constant move towards the 3-point shooting, I mean, we've seen it more and more this year. I mean, I feel like I've watched some Nets games this year where we've only seen 3-point shots at times, but so the 3-point percentage and the points average per game doesn't surprise me too much, especially when we've got 4 of the best scorers in the league on our team, I think. And we're probably going to be scoring 115 every night in the playoffs. So it's going to be really, really tough to beat us. So, yeah, no, it's nice to see. But, I mean, in terms of the other 2 stats that are there, I mean, the win percentage, that's really impressive. Just going back to what we said earlier in terms of the roadblocks that we've had this year, we've got to take our hat off to the team, because even if they were, say, 10 games under that, you would potentially class it as understandable just due to the circumstances we were handed. So, but yeah, no, I think you've nailed it there, Matt. I think with the assists, it has to be a real kick in the teeth for there's only one ball brigade, because they must feel so stupid now, because the passing hasn't just been kind of flowing every night. We've seen the assists, but it's been beautiful to watch at times too. And it's really hard to tell at times that this is the first season that this team have all played basketball together as a unit, because some of the passing we've seen on show, especially from James Harden, Kevin Durant at times has been fantastic at passing, and everyone in general has just been really, really good. So yeah, it's been beautiful to watch, and it's nice to see stats like that back up what we've seen all year.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just fantastic, these things. We've also seen some fantastic games this season. We've had some quite poor games during the season, but you've got to celebrate these things when possible. Aidan's obviously speaking about the assists, and you can't help but think of that kind of Harlem Globetrotters-esque kind of play from the other night, where was it Mike James that caught it, and then someone behind the back, and then off the backboard and dunked. And I mean, yeah, it was just fantastic. It's guys having fun, and I think that's all you can really ask for. We've seen a lot of guys have nights. Kyrie Irving's had so many 40-point nights, and just, yeah, as I say, these guys are having fun. I'm having fun watching it, and it's just fantastic that we've been able to witness this. I think in a season that's kind of so much was expected of it, it's certainly kind of lived up to expectations, at least so far. Maybe a few things could have went a bit better, like we've already kind of discussed, but for the most part, you look at stuff like that, you really can't argue with that, and you can only really be happy with it. I think there'd be many teams who'd love to swap some of their stats for some of the stats we've put up this season.
Yeah, I think it's one of those. I think with the Nets not having like a particularly glorious past, you could say, it's almost like they didn't have a lot in sort of very recent history to top. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, we've had a fantastic run in kind of the early noughties with those teams that went to the finals, and there's been a lot of comparisons to the stuff that they did and the stuff that we're doing right now, which is great. So it's kind of nice to rekindle and relive those great Nets moments that have happened, but we just got to remember that we're in the midst of it right now. And like we keep saying almost every week, and we're going to say it to death, and I need to put it on a t-shirt, but we're living in the good old days. So it's just one of those things that we just need to celebrate as it's coming through. But I think the win percentage is the really great one, because it accounts for that condensed season as well. But I think even because it has been that condensed season, that stat is even better. The reduced format means that we're up to over kind of 3 games a week in some weeks, and to continue winning all those basketball games with such attrition has been absolutely phenomenal and really, really great to see. And all the changes in the personnel, with the personnel, the COVID protocols, the positive and negative tests, the amount of bloody hamstring injuries this team has gone through and other injuries. I hate to say it, but it kind of speaks to a culture that this Nets team have got of just like winning habits. Like KD was saying when he came in, it's just like we need to build those championship habits. And I think winning is one of those habits that if you keep winning, then it's just kind of all good. So it's been really nice to sort of see those stats kind of come through, and it would be something for the record books and all that kind of stuff. But obviously the big thing we want to see in the record books is the Larry O'Brien Johnson trophy coming with us, coming home to Brooklyn, and a parade and all that good stuff. But that's going to come. That's all in good time. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. There's plenty more basketball to talk about before we chat about bringing home any gold. But I think one person who needs just a couple of minutes out of this podcast just to really stop and appreciate has been Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving, it got confirmed in that Cavaliers game, finished the season as the newest member enshrined to the 50, 40, 90 club. And he did so averaging over 25 points per game, which has only ever been done by Larry Bird, did it twice. I think MJ's done it. Steph Curry's done it. And Kyrie's done it. Lads, what does that mean to you? And what have been some of your favorite Kyrie moments from the season?
I mean, it's absolutely huge that Kyrie's achieved this. You just kind of, you've named some of the players. It's not something that many people do. It's a very, very special kind of exclusive club, and to have a player join that club, it's fantastic. I think Kyrie throughout the season has maybe been the star that I don't think we were all maybe expecting to see. Obviously, we know the kind of quality and ability of Kyrie, but some of the play he's had throughout the season, we've also had KD in and out of injuries, COVID. Harden obviously came in and was absolutely selling. We've not seen him, well, obviously have, but kind of for a few weeks we were without him. Yet Kyrie has kind of been one of the most durable players we've actually had, surprisingly. And yeah, just what can you say? That I kind of said about folk having fun. Kyrie's certainly a man that's having fun. You can just see him enjoying his basketball, and it's just a sheer delight. You tune in and you could just watch 48 minutes of Kyrie Irving ball, not even bother about anything else. Everything, the fancy work, the handles, to just the fancy layups, just his general vibe. I think you just kind of see him just so happy, hyping up his teammates. There's been a lot kind of made of him kind of training Landry Shamet. I think they'd mentioned it on the recent episode of The Bridge, the kind of Brooklyn Nets docu-series that they bring out throughout the thing. I think it's just fantastic. Kyrie's been called all names under the sun by kind of haters, and yeah, he's just kind of got on with things, and that's all we can really ask for him. People can hate all they want, but this man, I don't think anything really needs to be said. We know full well that he's a guy with a really good heart, and he's a fantastic basketball player as well. So yeah, all-round good guy, and just fantastic to have been able to witness this historic season. And also with him, as we always kind of say, being a kind of local guy, you know, to see it. And long may the Kyrie Irving years in Brooklyn continue, and hopefully gets multiple rings with the boyhood team.
I got to jump in there just before you say it. That I got my stats wrong. It wasn't MJ. It was actually KD who's done it. 25 points on 50, 40, 90. But yeah, sorry. Go on, Aidan.
No worries at all, man. Yeah, huge achievement. And you're just talking about KD there. He summed it up perfectly last night when he was speaking with Grady in the post game. He said that he was absolutely delighted for his best friend first and foremost. But he did say these are the type of percentages we've started to expect from Kyrie. And I think, again, that's what you were talking about earlier, that winning mentality. I think they're holding their teammates accountable this year and making sure that they're getting the best out of everyone. And I think at times you've seen players get upset with certain players. And I think that's just the levels that the team have. And again, I do think we do expect these numbers from Kyrie just because we know he can get to that level. I mean, I've absolutely loved watching him play this year. I think I said in the very first episode of the podcast that I felt that he was going to reach another level of this season. And I think he's gone over and above that all year. I mean, I know Cammy was kind of talking about the hate there. I will say that I have seen a few people saying that he shouldn't be honoured with the 50, 40, 90 club because he's not played enough games this year. He's played 54 games this year, and that's more than Joel Embiid, who's still up there for the MVP candidate. He's in the race for that. So at the end of the day, if that's enough, then surely this is enough for someone like Kyrie to be honoured with something so special like that. And obviously we saw last night, he was the 9th person to do it. Obviously Steve Nash has done it, and Kevin Durant's done it. So it's nice to have another person in Brooklyn that's reached that elite club. And I mean, Cammy touched on it, that this year he has been just absolutely incredible. I mean, I think if you were to look at certain things, his low percentage jumpers that he gets over bigger players is just incredible, and you do come to expect it. Again, it's crazy, but again, just the way he can get kind of hot from three. And if I was to point out just a couple of things that he's done this year in particular, the way he's came back after having times of out time when he's been out with kind of personal reasons, other bits and bobs. I mean, how he's managed to come back and be more efficient than he was before is outstanding, and there isn't another player in the league that can do it. I'm certain of it. There's not another player that can come back like he can. And yeah, I mean, you can go on to talk about what he's done while he's been fasting as well, which is just, yeah, absolutely incredible, because at times he's looked just incredible while he's not eating all day. And yeah, there's something to be said about the person that Kyrie is there as well as the basketball player. I just think he's a fantastic person who just gives everything for this team.
Yeah, I think he's just, it's weird. I don't want to get too deep and emotional on Kyrie, because I tend to do that every single time, and I don't want to get myself a reputation of being a bit of a touchy-feely kind of soppy sod when it comes to Kyrie Irving. But I'm going to go out on a limb. I think you sort of said it, Aidan, where he's played 54 games, which is more than James Harden, more than LeBron, more than Jimmy Butler, more than Kawhi Leonard and Joel Embiid, as you quite rightly say. But be it the 5 games with 40 or more points, be it burning sage in Boston or bringing human rights issues to the forefront, Kyrie Irving's just been that leader, that emotional, gutsy leader that, you know, he's that New Jersey kid that we all have come to know and love, and who, you know, you can't fault what he brings to this team. And, you know, there's been so much ill will, so many messed up words said about Kyrie coming from the Celtics, and all that kind of stuff, where he was dealing with his own stuff, and he's come through, and I think he's closer to home, and I think that's paying dividends. Just quickly, we got a little comment from Keith McPherson. Shout out Talking Nets. When we win, you guys come to the parade. If the beautiful country of America will have people come from the UK and we're not on a red list or something like that, we're going to be there, my friend. Yeah, but Kyrie's just special, man. I think I've said it before and I'll say it again. He's the kind of guy that you can just watch 24 hours of highlights on. And he's a 2K player. If you watch, if you give anyone highlights from Kyrie, just a highlight mix from YouTube, they'll be into basketball and they'll want to know more. And I think he plays the game the right way. But yeah, if you haven't guessed, Kyrie Irving is my favorite player on this Nets team. So it's one of those. But it leads me on to an interesting point, because I think all of us absolutely love Kyrie. All Nets fans love Kyrie, but there's still a weird sense to me that he's underrated. Even sort of just in this big three, do you think he's underrated, or is that just my weird thoughts?
Yeah, I'd say he could be underrated. He's certainly not underappreciated, especially within our fan base. He's not underappreciated. I think you could say he's underrated, but I mean, in terms of the big three, if Kyrie was to go out and have some time out, if he was to get injured, I think we would just be as upset, if not at times more, than if the other two got injured, if you know what I mean, just because of how much he gives, how much he kind of gives to this team. And I mean, yeah, I just think that the Nets fan base like kind of proved that when Kyrie had a few weeks off for personal reasons. The Nets fans were absolutely devastated that he was out, especially when at times we didn't have much information. And I know he was kind of dealing with stuff, and that's absolutely fine. And we've talked about that loads, that he can take as much time as he needs in our eyes. But I think the Nets fans were kind of like, oh, when's he coming back? We were gutted, because it was at a time as well where we wanted to see the big three together for the first time, never mind see them again, because we have had to wait so long until this last week. But yeah, I think he could be underrated just because of who he plays with. But yeah, time and time again, he comes out and balls out, and they go to him as the number one option on many occasions. So yeah, I think he could be underrated at times, but yeah, certainly not underappreciated on the Nets and within this fan base.
I'm not sure if underrated or kind of underappreciated would be the right kind of terms for it. I know just the other week we were asked a question by one of the members of the Discord who'd said, like, if you could only pick two of the three, and I think we all agreed KD and Harden, but kind of based it on the fact just that they're a bit more durable. Obviously, KD's had his injury problems this season, but historically speaking, I think we just kind of went, right, Harden, because we know he's always going to be there almost. But Kyrie, when you factor in his performances this season, you really could have it anyway. And as Aidan says, you want to see Kyrie play. He's one of those players that you stay up and watch. Obviously, it's different for us over here in the UK when it's the early hours, and just that keeps you going some nights, just knowing that he could pull out something, do something. It's like, wow, like he's a player you can't take your eyes off of. And yeah, I don't think underappreciated or underrated. It's kind of difficult one on where to put it, but certainly a player loved by all Nets fans. I don't think that can be up for debate.
Yeah, I think he is underrated. I think not by Nets fans. I think you're absolutely right there, where he's not underrated or underappreciated by us guys. But I've got a bit of a theory. I think if he'd have started his career out as a true shooting guard, he'd have way more respect in the league. I kind of touched on, even though his leadership from the Nets team on this Nets team is clear, he's the emotional leader. He's the lead by example leader. Plays basketball the right way, as I've said. And I've got off, my notes went a little bit weird on Kyrie. I think he's the kind of person that would almost make you a better person just by being around him. Just because, of all the off-court stuff that he talks about, when he has every right to be really, really into his own achievements, he chooses to talk about other things, which I think is absolutely beautiful. But I think since you're the point guard, I'm the shooting guard conversation, we've been able to enjoy the best version of Kyrie Irving. And yeah, I think it's just been beautiful. I think I saw some chat earlier that he should be in like an all NBA conversation. I don't think that will happen, but like scoring 25 plus, what is he, 26 points per game or something this season on 50, 40, 90? It's just like, how can you argue with that? And like you say, with he's that durability, he's played more than Harden, he's played more than KD. Yeah, all signs point to Kyrie just having an absolute beast of a year. So hats off to Kyrie Irving. We love you very much. But another player we all love very much, but something that we do need to have a bit of a conversation about is Joe Harris. Obviously, this week he's not gone a bit missing, but he's not the ever reliable guy that we've been counting on, and he's gone down a bit of an injury. What have you guys noticed? A bit of a downward trend on Joe's performance at all?
I think we've kind of touched on it briefly in recent weeks and don't want to go too in depth on it just because we all love him so much and we don't want to bash him. I'd like to think we are quite kind of measured on the podcast. We dish out praise and kind of criticism in equal measure. But for Joe, we've maybe let that slide a little bit, thinking just, well, how much we love him and stuff like that. And yeah, let's not kid on. Joe in the past, you're saying kind of past week, past 2 weeks, probably past month, maybe even month and a half, it's just not really kind of been his time. Obviously started the season so well, and obviously he still had some odd good games throughout, but lately it's just things just haven't really clicked for him. His shooting's kind of been off. He's still hitting shots, but it's just not the kind of Joe Harris we've come to expect. And obviously a lot's made of the money ends in the Discord. There's regular debates had on Joe Harris, TLC, and all that jazz. So if you're wanting involved in that kind of daily scrap, join the Discord. But yeah, I mean, over the course of the season, though, Joey Buckets has the league leading, regular season kind of highest 3-point percentage. He has the 6th most 3-pointers made with 211. And yeah, it's been an absolutely sensational season kind of from that regard. And I think it's when you consider how good he's been at some points this season to kind of see him drop off and barely hit shots and kind of to the level we were expecting, it's certainly cause for concern, but I think his kind of recent time out could actually do him some good. I think, if I'm not wrong, up until his kind of recent time out, he'd featured in every game. I think there was that game he'd played, 4 or 5 minutes and then just kind of got pulled. I think we were kind of struggling for another night. We didn't want, right, he can't play at all, so we shoved him in a few. But yeah, for the most part, he's played a kind of pretty steady 20-25 minutes throughout the season. And yeah, players are always going to have their slumps. We've seen it with Landry Shamet, who's kind of back in a bit of a slump, not being too great, but a few weeks ago he was shooting lights out, and it's just kind of peaks and troughs, and Joe Harris is no different, and I can only hope that he'll come back, the Joe Harris that we all love, kind of when he's back, and hopefully can get firing in the playoffs, because Joe Harris, a player with his 3-point shooting kind of ability, is a dangerous weapon to have in your arsenal.
We've come to that point in the episode where I'm going to put my metaphorical tin hat on here and say that he's not injured at all. I honestly don't think he's injured. And I think, yeah, Cammy's right. I think he played the first 69 games and he played a part in all of those. And he's played a huge amount of minutes with this team. And yeah, I think he does deserve a rest. And I think it could do him a world of good in terms of the fact that he'll come into the lineup next week and refreshed, re-energized. And I think it is a wise move for the Nets, who probably spotted that he was in a bit of a downward kind of trend in terms of his performances. And I don't think he's played terrible. I mean, I think it's just we've kind of got to that stage where you do expect Joe Harris to get 4 or 5 3-pointers in a game, and then kind of do some of the dirty work as well. But I think we have seen a couple of kind of poor defensive performances where he has kind of had the better the person he's been guarding, has had the better of him quite often. And I think that's probably down to fatigue. And we've talked about kind of resting guys all season with KD, Harden and Kyrie. But you've got to remember the other guys. These are the guys that are making up those minutes when they're not there. And Joe's certainly one of those that's certainly been making up the minutes. He's been playing plus 30 minutes almost every night. And you've got to think he does deserve a bit of a break. And I think he could benefit massively from this in terms of, obviously, he's going to come back in. Harden's going to be back in the lineup. When did we run the most 3-point kind of plays when Harden was in the lineup? It was for Joe Harris. He was always getting in the end of those. He was always the open guy. We've talked about it all the time, that when those big three are on the court and he's there, he's always going to be open because someone's going to be getting double teamed. So he's going to benefit massively. And if they can get some just added rest, I think he'll come back re-energized and ready to go for these playoffs, because yeah, we're going to need him, because we're going to need shooters in these games, and he's going to be really, really important.
Yeah, I've just got Basketball Reference up as we're talking, and he started all but 4 games this season where he's featured. Obviously, he's had the last 3 off as inactive, and according to Malika Andrews, he's got a left gluteal strain, which from my days of PE at school, which means he's got a sore ass. So that's quite funny. But yeah, I think, nothing too crazy. I think I would quite happily jump on your conspiracy train there, Aidan, and say that he's fine and he just needs a bit of like a mental reset. And he'll be back for the playoffs though. So that's all good. So yeah, not worried about Joe, but yeah, I think, what is it, sort of in the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, if 4 of the last 5 games, he's 3 of the last 5 games, he's scored less than 10 points, which, just isn't Joe Harris. His season average is way more than it is 14. So obviously that's taken a bit of a dip. So it'd be nice to see Joe a bit refreshed, a bit re-energized, get him on one of those smoothies that all the Nets seem to be banging down, and he'll be right as rain. But yeah, really, really cool. We'll have him back. He'll be fine. But just thought it might be nice to call out. But as well as we're calling out stuff, I thought what we'd do is, as it's the end of the regular season, we'll have a quick check back in. And long-time fans of the podcast or long-time listeners of the podcast will know that we did a big pre-season prediction pod. We were joined by Theo of Met the Criteria. And we had a little look back just to see how well we did. I don't know if you guys have got your predictions in front of you, but who wants to go through how they did first?
I'll go, because I think Cammy done a lot better than me, so we'll get the worst out of the way. I was really, really confident in the start of the year, but to be fair, I wasn't too far off. I think I said we'd end up 15-22, which is obviously only 2 over. But if you told November me, that the Nets were going to have all these injuries, I certainly would have had us down more than 48. So I'm pretty happy. I've definitely kind of had some more notes from this than I actually said. I think we were just a bit tight for time with it being the 4 of us. But yeah, I said the Nets would finish first. I said second wouldn't be the end of the world, just because there's a big drop off after the top 5, which I think is relatively true. Nets MVP, I said Kyrie. And I said, I think he's going to go off this year, which I'm pretty confident that I can be happy with that one. Breakout star, I think I said Shamit, and I said TLC. And I just said TLC off the back that he gave really good minutes in the bubble. And then I said Shamit as well, for the same reasons that I said Joe Harris will be great this year, lots of open shooting. And then I think for my oddly specific prediction, I put injury-free Kyrie season, which I'm going to go by and say that that's true, because I still don't think he's had an injury worth noting that he's been injured. He's kind of been out for other things, apart from that knock in the face, but that still, for me, isn't a major injury. And the one that I didn't say was I said Jarrett Allen to be traded, which did happen.
I'm calling bullshit.
So
on that one,
and I'll blame you for TLC being garbage this season. But yeah, anyway, as for my predictions, I said we'd go 49-23, actual record of 48-24. So I'll take that. That was only 1 off. MVP, I said KD. I think Kyrie probably was the MVP. I think KD, had he played more, easily could have been. We did certainly see plenty of MVP kind of caliber play, but obviously not enough games. Breakout star, said Caris LeVert, obviously traded. Who I'd say for that this season? Maybe Bruce Brown, bit of a kind of surprise there. Clax, maybe not played too much. Oddly specific, I said Joe Harris would lead the NBA in 3-point percentage. I was right. So maybe that wasn't that oddly specific. I was kind of on that train from the beginning, and yeah, he's done it. Then I think I said the biggest opponents would be the Bucks and the Sixers, and I mean the reverse. The Sixers finished above us, Bucks finished below us. So yeah, I mean I'll take them for some preseason predictions.
I think I said the same as well. I said Bucks and Sixers. I said Bucks regular season, 76ers playoffs, and I think it'll probably be reversed.
Yeah, nice. I think, it sucks to go after Cammy on that, I think, because Cammy's done incredibly well. I said that we'd go 50-22, as same as Aidan. I said we'd finish in the 3rd seed because I'm a pessimist and I hate myself. MVP, I did say Kyrie. Surprise of the season. I can't remember who I said, but I think, with a fresh set of eyes, I want to say Bruce Brown and Blake Griffin. Bruce
You can't
Brown.
pick your answers now.
Yeah, well, the benefit of having a shit memory is that I can just make up my answers now.
You're not counting injuries, Aidan, so that's Matt's say.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Shout out to Matt Riley as well, who said standouts for me have been Jeff Green, Bruce Brown, and Nicholas Claxton. Like you said, Cammy Claxton could have done with a few more minutes. Bruce Brown has been incredible, and Jeff Green I still think is on the best contract in the NBA. But shout out to Blake Griffin. We're going to get onto him a little bit while we recap these games. But Blake Griffin just does a little bit of everything, I think. Can still dunk. He's saucy from free when he needs to be, and he will just dive everywhere. For a man who's, past his physical prime, and his knees by all accounts are made out of pick and mix. He's diving all over everywhere with no regard for his own safety. So big up Blake Griffin as well. But yeah, it's been a roller coaster season. I think a lot of our predictions were kind of thrown out the window when it comes to this season with the mega trade that happened. I think I said that Kyrie would average a double-double. I'll say that he averaged 50, 40, 90 is kind of the same. It's absolutely not, but I'm going to go with it anyway. But yeah, so I think, the Harden trade kind of put our preseason predictions into a little bit of a spin, but I'm all over it anyway. But yeah, before we get into these games, I just wanted to touch on, this is something that we've kind of been chatting about in the Discord and something we've been chatting about just between ourselves as one season not winds down, but as one season comes to an end, another season is just ramping up. And if you're watching with us live on Twitch, if you're watching with us live on YouTube, or if you're watching with us live on Periscope, you'll see that Seafoam season is upon us. The New York Liberty of the WNBA, as we're recording, are 2-0 on the new WNBA season. And I don't know about you guys. I've taken it, I want it to be a bit more. I'm a lover of basketball. I'm not just a lover of the NBA. I'm a lover of basketball in itself. I try and keep an eye on the British stuff that's going on in the BBL. I try and keep on with the local grassroots stuff that's happening around me. And of course, I'm going to have a little look and see what the WNBA has to offer. And, this is a Brooklyn Nets podcast. So why should Nets fans care that the WNBA has started? Quite simply, the New York Liberty. They're owned by Joe Tsai. They play their basketball in the Barclays Center. They're one of the original WNBA teams in their 25th year. And their jerseys are fire too, if you want to just, cop some merch. And as I say, now the NBA is just going into playoff time. There's going to be a ton of teams that have got have none of their own teams to watch. And League Pass is so cheap. We put it in Discord the other day. If you want to watch all the Liberty games all season, it's £7. It's like $6.99. And if you want to watch all the games, it's like 16 quid. But lads, what have you made of the Lib games that you've watched so far this season?
I'll go first here, and I think what I want to say without sounding too harsh is I've been pleasantly surprised. Now, before kind of this season, I can't say I was a big WNBA fan. I've kind of seen the odd highlight reel, and most of the time it was very poor showing of what the NBA is. I think a lot of it's mocks, just it's women playing basketball. They've not got the height, they've not got the physicality. But yeah, as I say, pleasantly surprised that the quality was actually a bit better than I kind of anticipated it would have been. It was actually really enjoyable. Just kind of seeing, obviously in the kind of men's game, there's a lot more kind of freaks in nature, but it just seemed a bit more of an even playing field watching the kind of first two Liberty games. I don't know if that's kind of what you thought. Obviously, I'd like to put it out there now. We're going to launch our own Sabrina Yanescu Stan account. The Queen of New York. We've got the King with the Brooklyn Nets and KD, Kyrie, James Harden. Take your pick. But yeah, there's no debate. We've got the Queen and Sabrina, and that kind of buzzer beater. Well, not quite buzzer beater. The game winner with milliseconds left was ice cold, and she's been superb. Then is it Nigel Laney? She's she's been awesome as well. Averaged 25 points over the course of the first 2 games. And yeah, it's only been 2 games. But yeah, Liberty, as you say, Matt, possibly the coolest jerseys, maybe even cooler than any of the Nets jerseys. I have fallen in love with the seafoam green jerseys of the Liberty. And I'm very looking forward to kind of tuning in and keeping kind of tabs on them throughout the season.
Yeah, you said it was probably not a game like a buzzer beater. I'd call that a buzzer beater. That's as near as you're going to get in my eyes. And yeah, I'd say that play at the end from Sabrina's, the way they lined that up and set that play. Steve Nash would have been jealous of that one, because I thought she was just fantastic the way she cut back and nailed that 3-pointer for someone so young. I mean, it's not just Sabrina, the whole team. They're just a young, energetic team who just look like they're going to be a problem this year. And I think a lot of like new Nets fans would have got into the Nets when we had that young team with D'Angelo Russell, Caris LeVert. That's what basketball's all about. Seeing these players come in and develop, and that team's full of them. It's well worth a watch. And yeah, you mentioned the price there. I mean, it's absolutely buttons. Yeah, Matt's just put that in. I'll pop that up there. He nailed it. They can inbound the ball better than the Nets. Yeah, it's not hard, but they can, and they're really good at it. But yeah, really, really impressed with what I've seen. I've watched both games. They look like they're going to be a real problem in the league this year. And I know they've not been very good for a good few years, but yeah, Sabrina and the rest of them, they look like they could do really well this year. So yeah, looking forward to keeping up with it as well.
Yeah, nice. It's cool. Like I'm coming from a position where I'm the same as you guys. I didn't follow the WNBA. But now I'm doing it the best way I know how. I've started a fan account because that's seemingly what I do. So if you go to NY Liberty UK, then that's where I'm chatting all things WNBA. For those that don't know, Sabrina Yanescu was an absolute phenom in college, breaking records left, right, and center. She got injured sort of 3 games into her rookie season last year in the wobble. So this is effectively her rookie season, and she's absolutely battering it. So she's kind of the glitz and glamour story in the Liberty, but the whole team is stacked with talent. They got Natasha Howard, who they traded for this season, but Nia Laney, like you say, Lasia Clarendon, who is the first trans person in the WNBA, which is just a sick story. Sammy Whitcomb, so they've got who's like an absolute sharpshooter, veteran of the game. Loads of championship pedigree, and as you say, I think last season they had 7 rookies in this team. So there's loads of really, really young players. There's loads of championship pedigree. There's loads of veterans. So it's just one of those teams that you never know what you're going to get, but it's going to be really, really entertaining. And for the sake of a couple of cups of coffee, you're going to get a whole season of Liberty basketball. But yeah, Sabrina, that game, that 3-point play, if you haven't seen it, I'm sure if you could just go through Twitter and go through Liberty Twitter, you'll see that she's got that Mamba mentality, having studied under the late great Kobe Bryant. Yeah, just what a basketball player. Yeah, definitely worth a watch. But yeah, back to all things Brooklyn, shall we say, as we go on. And we did have a couple of games to play. Starting off with all the way back from Saturday night against the Denver Nuggets. So we took the game 125-119. Pretty sure this is the one where we kind of all thought we'd drop. But the Nets rallied back from 21 points down to win this one in the end. We were all a bit doom and gloom last week, saying it was the worst week of the year, and oh my God, how have we timed this bad run of form to right at the end of the season? But what a way to stop that season worst 4-game losing streak. Kevin Durant finished with 33 points, 7 assists, 11 rebounds, 2 steals, 2 blocks for his 11th double-double of the season. Kyrie finished with 31 points, 4 assists, a steal, and a block. Blake Griffin had 20 points. He drilled 4 threes in the third quarter alone. Jeff Green came off the bench with 15 points of his own. I mean, Denver were off on the second night of a back-to-back, and that kind of helped in that second half where it did kind of look like they were flagging a little bit. But this one sort of came down to the clutch, where it was neck and neck a little bit, and we just started pulling away, and the Nets just kind of ramped it out in that last little bit. But there was a little bit of late drama. KD scored some clutch free throws, and he scored all 9 of Brooklyn's final 9 points. And the team actually limited the Nuggets to just 15 points in the fourth quarter. So that clutch, that sort of system defense, switchy defense that we're kind of getting known for, really, really coming to the fore. But the main kind of drama was Jeff Green and Jokic. They kind of went out for a jump ball late in the game, and Jokic kind of missed a floater after that and just went absolutely crazy at the refs, which you don't really see Jokic doing all too often at all. He's normally pretty level-headed and kind of very chilled as a kind of player. But he was appealing to the refs that he'd been fouled by Claxton. He got himself a technical, but the 2-minute report agreed with the ruling on the floor, and there was no wrongdoing by our darling boy, Nick Claxton. But yeah, not a bad way to start the week. A good result for that Denver game.
Yeah, it was, and obviously we managed to follow that up with another dub. Obviously, as you said, it was all doom and gloom last week, but this week was the perfect week. You couldn't really argue with results, and kind of one of the main talking points from this one is going to be this injury that Aidan's wasn't an injury. Kyrie getting kind of elbowed in the face by Nikola Vucevic, and dare I say, my heart was in my mouth. I was shitting myself. Just given the kind of cards we've been dealt with injuries this season, and when he got hit in the face, I was like, oh no, here we go. This is going to be a broken nose, and he'll need to miss a few weeks. He'll miss the start of the playoffs, so he'll be concussed, and obviously need to take these things seriously. And given how the Nets deal with injuries, you'd maybe only stay out for a week or whatever. He'd be out for 3 or 4 knowing the Nets. So thankfully, it wasn't anything serious, and that was a huge relief. I think the thing, other than that injury, was the fact it was quite a team performance. Everyone other than Shamet hit at least 10 or more points. Shamet had, I think, just 1 point. Quite a poor night from him. And yeah, I think we've kind of called for just everyone to step up. There's clearly guys in the rotation wanting to prove themselves and say, right, give me minutes in the playoffs, Steve Nash. And yeah, when you've got all these players stepping up, you're always going to kind of win games. Yes, the kind of margin was only, 8 points, but listen, I'll take that all day long. Shout out to the likes of Clax and Bruce Brown, both had double-doubles, and obviously nice to continue that winning streak that we started against the Nuggets, which was a game I think we were all rather concerned for. So yeah, fantastic they managed to kind of get that done and do it all together as well. Yeah,
cracking game. Then we... I think this was one of the games that I was really looking forward to, because on Wednesday we hosted the Spurs, beat the Spurs 128-116, which was actually a season sweep of the Spurs, which doesn't happen very often. I think it was a 3rd time in Nets history, franchise history, if I remember that correctly. But this was the game that the beard returned. After what felt like a billion years off, James Harden came back into a Nets uniform, came in off the bench, absolutely raring to go. And as we've seen so many times already in his short time with the Nets, nearly notched another triple-double, because he's a walking triple-double machine. A pretty dominant display from Brooklyn, with 8 Nets in double digits for scoring, including Landry Shamet, who you touched on, Cammy. Led all scorers with 21 points, including 5 of 7 from 3. James Harden with 18 points, 11 assists, and 7 rebounds. The Nets have improved to 28-7 with Harden in the lineup, which is just ridiculous. Shout out to Nick Claxton, who scored a career-high 18 points. KD had a sort of quiet night with only 14. Bruce Brown also had 14. Jeff Green had 16. Blake Griffin had 13. It's just, one of those games where we started off well really early. I think we scored on like 5 of our first 6 sort of trips up the floor, which is really good. This Nets team tends to, if they start well, they continue that on. But yeah, just a great all-round offensive performance. And God, I've missed those step-back threes from James Harden. I don't know about you lot, but it was lovely to see.
Yeah, it was, and also followed that up again, played the Bulls again this week, and this was the game that we were all looking forward to, the much kind of awaited return of the Scary Hours trio. Obviously, the first game, I think, since February 12th or 13th, with them all together, was supposed to happen against the Spurs, and obviously what happened. Kyrie wasn't there, but on Saturday, I think there was so much expectation and hype, it just kind of felt a bit flat. And yous are probably going to start hounding me, and there might be folk in the comments shouting at me going, you can't say that, but it did. It was just a really bizarre kind of night. We beat the Bulls by a larger margin than we did the kind of a few nights before. And also, as I said, it was a team performance the other night. But this was the Kyrie Irving show. Kyrie balled out, and I'm saying just Kyrie Irving. Bruce Brown was also immense. He had 16 points. Jeff Green had 19. But Harden was quite disappointing, just 5 points. KD had just 12 and went 4 of 17. So yeah, it was a bizarre one. Nice to obviously see the Scary Hours trio back, and I think it was important, although they maybe weren't all firing on all cylinders, that they just got minutes. What we've said for weeks and weeks, kind of in the kind of period where Harden's been seemingly ramping up. He could be back now, could be back whenever. But we just wanted to see them play a game or two and just get playing again. And yeah, I think that this will be a huge boost for us. So yeah, it's a really difficult one to kind of discuss, because when we'd kind of decided the games, was like, yes, right, this is going to be class to talk about this. And yeah, it was just a bit disappointing. Maybe I was getting a bit too excited, and that's why things fell a bit flat. But yeah, we got the win, continued the winning streak, and you really can't complain at that.
Yeah, so and then we went on to Sunday, and we didn't play the Bulls, which I'm sure many people were happy to see, because I've been a bit bored of playing against Nikola Vucevic. I feel like we played him about 10 times this year, but yeah, so we finished off the season on Sunday against the Cavs in a really, really fun game, and there was so much going on during the night, so which was thoroughly entertaining. So I'll try and kind of sum this up as best as I can. But yeah, I mean, the Nets went into this one without Joe Harris once again, as we've talked about, and they decided to rest James Harden on the second half of back-to-back with about 3 or 4 hours to go before the tip. So probably a wise move, as he wasn't required to get this job done, and managed to secure the second seed for the Nets. And I'm not surprised, because the 3-ball was absolutely flowing for the Nets from minute one, and they never really fell off, to be honest with you. They just kept going. I mean, obviously, we've talked about the main story from this one, that Kyrie managed to go 3 of 3 from 3 to get his 3-point percentage over the line to join the 50-40-90 club. We've talked about it enough. Something that I thought I'd add on from this one is Steve Nash talked at the end to say that he didn't put Kyrie back in the game later on because he wanted to let other guys play. I feel like he's secretly just wanted him to join in with the club with him and KD, so I think that's why he kept him out. But yeah, some really good performances in this one. Kevin Durant had a near triple-double, locked in all night, to be honest with you. He had 23 points, 13 rebounds and 8 assists. Numbers like that from a guy like KD is what we're looking for. I think it'd be excellent to see him get that amount of rebounds, especially when we've been suffering on the boards recently. So yeah, huge game from him to bounce back from probably what was his worst performance of the season the night before, Cammy, the one that you were talking about, I'd say. So yeah, he was even talking about it afterwards with Grady. Grady was kind of like, yeah, you didn't have, like, you kind of bounced back from a not so kind of hot night the night before. He was kind of beating her in the boots. He was like, yeah, I definitely came back after a pure night. So it was good to see him in great spirits, and him and Grady were having a laugh, which was nice. In terms of the Cavs, I mean, Colin Sexton ended up getting ejected as he somehow managed to elbow KD in the face on a drive. If you bear in mind that KD is 7 foot and Colin Sexton is 6'1", so no idea why he had his elbow that high. I know, I don't know. I watched the back and I was like, yeah, there's no excuses for your elbow being up there. He's certainly just trying to catch him. But yeah, there was just some really fun moments in this one. At the timeouts, the Nets celebrated Kai's 50-40-90 season. They gave him his moment. I actually thought it was a bit too early because they done it like the end of the third. And I was like, they could come back here and they might need to come back in. So I was quite happy that they kind of saw it out after they gave him his moment. They also saw tribute videos to Jarrett Allen and to Taurean Prince as well. I think Taurean Prince, it was safe to say, it was a little bit shorter than Jarrett Allen's. It kind of felt like, do you know, like when it's your sibling's birthday when you're younger, that they just get you like a small present just to kind of keep you quiet when they're opening their presents. It felt like that. We were laughing in the Discord because we were saying, I wonder if Jeremiah Martin was going to get his bubble tribute at the end after Prince managed to get one. But yeah, no, I mean, to finish this one up, I mean, you can't finish up talking about this game without talking about that play of the season that Cammy touched on earlier. Play of the season, I've put here maybe of the decade, maybe the best we've seen in the Barclays Centre. Could well be. I mean, the Nets went on like kind of full on Harlem Globetrotters in the final seconds of the first half with you've just got to call it a stunning fast break. I mean, Blake started it, obviously, kind of with that behind-the-back pass. Kyrie touched it onto Mike James, who threw it off the backboard for a KD dunk, and everyone just went mental. I know you spotted it in the video, Matt, with Jeff Green just launching towels up in the air, and it was just absolutely insane. Everyone on Twitter was just losing their minds, and I laughed at what Theo said in the Discord. He said he woke up his family with his reaction to that one. So, no, yeah. Play of the season in the last game of the season, which is a nice way to end the regular season when it has been up and down at times, but it just shows how far we've came. And yeah, that was something special that I'll live with me as a Nets fan for a long time.
Absolutely. I mean, Matty Riley's in the chat has put it right. He's just called it just filth, absolute filth, which I absolutely love. But yeah, I mean. That's all the recaps and that puts a nice little bow on the regular season. But now we just got the small matter of the playoffs to think about now. Time for the listener questions. Big up everyone that sent us through listener questions. We're still in the chat. If you got a late question you want to put to us, make sure you get in the chat now, and we'll get to it if there's time. But we've got from George in our Discord. We've got a wicked Discord full of nearly 50 NBA Brooklyn Nets fans from the UK. If you're a UK-based Nets fan, slide into my DMs and I'll grab you an invite link to join us on that Discord, because we chat Brooklyn Nets 7 days a week. So it's a really, really cool community. But he says to us, how much of a difference do you think the home court advantage with the now boosted amount of fans will make? Who wants to take this one first?
You go, Cam.
I'm kind of intrigued to see how this will go. Obviously, we started the season without fans, and it's kind of slowly increased as kind of the COVID situation's changed around the US. And I think it goes without saying, players always say they thrive on the fans. The fans can really make the difference. It goes in all sports. I think it'll be especially interesting to see how the Nets fans who are fortunate enough to be allowed in for the playoff games, how they react. Obviously, there's so much expectation on this team, and will they crumble under the kind of expectation of the fans who really want to see them win? I don't think there's any Nets fan out there who doesn't kind of believe that we can go all the way and win the championship. And it's going to be interesting. Are they going to get on the back of the team immediately, or will they kind of just be quite calm and collected? It's kind of different, and I think it's one of those things where we need to wait and see. But I think having home court advantage is definitely going to be huge for us, especially as you say with those fans. Hopefully, they can cheer us on to some success.
I think if you were to ask the players what they think of the home court advantage, I'd say the fact that they're probably going to get an extra couple of nights sleep in their own bed is probably a bigger advantage than having the fans of the arena. They've talked about it a couple of times this week, actually, where they've said that they were looking forward to being in Brooklyn for quite a long period of time. And I think that's where our main advantage is going to be within the first couple of rounds, having the home court advantage. I think in terms of the fans, I definitely think it is an advantage for some teams. I think teams like the Knicks will probably benefit from it. I think they're probably absolutely delighted that they got it, especially when they've not been in the playoffs for a while. It just kind of settles nerves a wee bit. And I think you could probably say the same for the Nets, obviously, because we've not seen this unit play too many minutes together. I think the first 2 rounds of home advantage may settle nerves a bit when we've obviously kind of making a couple of mistakes. Obviously, when you've got the fans behind you, it does give you that bit of an edge. They've kind of mentioned it, even since we've had that small amount of fans in there, that it has made quite a big difference. I think, obviously, hopefully by the time we get to the Eastern Conference Finals and we've lost our home court advantage, you'd think if we play the Sixers, if we get there, that they should be locked in by that time. And I think if you look at guys like KD, Harden and Kyrie, I don't think it matters where they play, if they're playing at home and if they're playing in the away arena. They seem to excel from opposing fans heckling them just as much as their own fans behind them, especially KD absolutely loves it. And I think Kyrie secretly loves it too, even though he doesn't say it. But yeah, I think I like the idea as many Nets fans as possible seeing the Nets in the playoffs. I just think it's going to be really special for them. I'm very jealous. I think I think if we were in a position where it wasn't COVID right now, we would be trying to get some flights over there to at least try and take in a game, because I think it's going to be incredible. But yeah, I think I like the idea of Kevin Durant silencing a Sixers home crowd just as much as that.
That would be pretty tasty. Yeah, I think you're right. They do sort of get some extra energy off those jeers as well as the cheers. But yeah, I think that it's got to count for something, hasn't it? I think it's a great point that you said about just being at home will do so much for this team. I mean, we're going to get into it a little bit on our next point of order, because, I mean, Boston isn't obviously a million miles away, but that's obviously not a home game. And Wizards, Washington obviously isn't incredibly far from New York, but it's got to count for something. Staying in your own city and even just being around those familiar things, and you put the fans on top of that, I think it's got to be something. There's going to be a lot of extra energy, I think, in the room. If you just, have all these fans that have been starved of seeing their team for so long, and you multiply that by all the expectations that have come through on this team, especially in the last couple of years. We had last playoffs were in the bubble, so there were obviously no fans. This playoffs, fans want to go see their team at their best, and I think I've seen I haven't seen the net ticket prices, and this could actually absolutely be the same. But I've seen the cheapest ticket prices to see the Knicks and the Hawks is you're talking over $1,000 to go watch a basketball game, which that's. If that's an easy decision for someone to make, I mean, I wish I was in your shoes, but it's a lot of cash, and the Nets could be the same. But I think any Nets fan that can make it would absolutely love to make it. So I think home court advantage would absolutely be a huge thing. But yeah, even if we pipe in all the noise fake, I think it'll be a big thing. But looking ahead to next week, thanks for George for sending in your question once again. But looking ahead to next week, the Nets have got a week off, which I think the distance, I think the amount of time they've got off now is bigger than the training camp that they had together to start this season, which is absolutely ridiculous. But we've got a little bit of time off, and in that time, there's going to be the first playing game between the Wizards and the Celtics, and the winner of that gets the pleasure of meeting the Nets in the first round. Lads, if you could pick, who would you prefer, the Wizards or the Celtics?
I think everyone needs to calm down a bit in regards to the Wizards. I've seen a lot of interesting takes that the Nets should really avoid these, and I think if they're referring to the two games earlier on in the season, that was a long time ago in terms of basketball, and the Nets have improved massively since then. So yeah, I think the Nets would be very comfortable against the Wizards. I'd prefer them over the Celtics, to be honest with you, for a few reasons. I mean, the Wizards are the worst defensive team in the league by a long shot. I was looking at some stats, and they kind of take all defensive attributes into play, and the Wizards are the worst by a good bit. So yeah, and I think if you mix that with the best offense in the league from the Nets, we'd probably put up 140 a night if we managed to get matched up with them. And I don't know about you guys. I mean, obviously Russ and Beal have been playing really well and having kind of historic years, the both of them. But after that, they kind of drop off massively. And I think I'd rather face that than the Celtics, who could still have Kemba, Fournier, Smart, Tatum, some really good defensive players who would know how to defend certain nets. And yeah, I'd much rather face the Wizards in the first round over the Celtics, purely on a basis that I think the Nets would definitely put up 140 a night in that matchup quite comfortably.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd probably say the Wizards as well, although, as you say, we did lose to them twice earlier on in the season, whereas we did sweep the Celtics, including the kind of pre-season game where we absolutely murdered them and murdered them again. I I think the Celtics would be interesting, obviously, missing it on Jaylen Brown, not a player who's starred against the Nets, and had one kind of big game. I think it was 27 points he got against us in one of the games, and I didn't even think he appeared in others, or if he did, he didn't do much. The Celtics one, I think I'd want just for the kind of, it would kind of feel like going full circle, obviously, that trade that set us years and years back, to then kind of dump them out the playoffs with the kind of team back in a healthy state. I think there'd be a kind of nice element to that, but ultimately, I think it's fair to say, whether it's the Celtics or the Wizards we face, it's not going to be an easy game. They're going to be difficult, as much as the Wizards are absolutely terrible defensively. Aidan's pointed out both Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal that both caused us problems earlier on this season, and you'd imagine they'll manage to find another level in the playoffs, much like your kind of Jason Tatum's, your Marcus Smarts, and all the kind of Celtics players. I'd like to think, though, that we can get past this one in 4, maybe 5, and then we can worry about what I'd imagine would be the Bucks. The more time we can kind of get post this series, I think the better for us and our chances of the championship.
Absolutely. I was listening to Locked On Nets today, and they put it really well, where the Celtics, although obviously they've seriously underperformed this season, they've still got some really solid defensive players. So whereas that Wizards game will just be an absolute sprint to who can just score the most points. And I'd still back the Nets to score more points than the Wizards, because they've got Russ and Bradley Beal. We've got 3, and we've still got some elite 3-point shooters surrounding them. So yeah, I'd still go. I'd obviously still back the Nets doing anything, but I'd rather face the Wizards than face that Celtics team, because as you guys have both said, that defensively they kind of give this Nets team a few more problems than the Wizards do. But yeah, the time will tell. I'm not sure when that game. I think it might be Tuesday that the game is. So we will wait with bated breath. And then we'll see who it is. I mean, there's a piece of me that would quite like to beat down on the Celtics and sweep them out the first round of the playoffs. But I think that's more of a narrative thing than it is a serious kind of basketball take. But I'm happy whatever, as long as we're winning. I'm all good. But yeah, like I say, time will tell. We shall see, and that will wrap us up for this week's podcast. Thank you very much for everyone who's been rocking with us all season. So far, we've got a very, very exciting post-season of content planned. But yeah, we hope you enjoyed this week's episode of BKT UK. Thank you very much for listening. Please subscribe, rate, review the pod if you can on your platform. You can also head to teespring.com/stores/UK Nets fans, where you can buy some merch and support what we're doing. And yeah, thanks very much. We'll see you next week.